Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we take sources you're interested in, and we really unpack them for you. Get you the key takeaways.
Yeah, get right to the heart of it.
And today, you sent in a really fascinating one. The 36 Deadly Bubishi Points, the Science and Technique of Pressure Point Fighting. It's by Rand Cardwell.
Oh, yeah, this book is. It's packed. You've got history from Tuttle Publishing. You have insights from people like Patrick McCarthy, a big name in martial arts, plus the author's own journey trying to figure this stuff out. Detailed traditional Chinese medicine concepts, specific points, even how stress, affects fighting. It's a lot.
So our mission today really is to get a handle on what this book says pressure point fighting is all about. We want to try and connect those Eastern medical ideas with maybe Western science.
And see what the practical side is, for self-defense, for instance.
Exactly. What can you actually use? Okay, let's dig in. With all that in there, where's a good place to start?
Well, maybe the foundation. Tuttle Publishing itself, they've got this whole mission, right? Bridging East and West. That's kind of the book's goal, too.
Making these sometimes pretty complex Eastern ideas accessible.
Accessible to a Western audience, yeah. That's the core idea.
And Cardwell, the author, he wasn't formally trained in TCM, was he? It sounds like he had quite a job piecing it all together.
That's right. He talks about that, how challenging it was to understand, like, bioelectrical energy, the 5 elements, yin-yang meridians, especially for, actual combat.
Without that background.
Yeah. He gives credit to a lot of people who helped and specifically points out Rand Cardwell's research was key for understanding some of the trickier Bubishi points, those Dim Mak ones.
And then there's the Patrick McCarthy forward. In the martial arts community, that's significant.
Oh, absolutely. McCarthy is highly respected. He basically says, look, if you want to really understand these principles, Cardwell's work is valuable.
He even admitted some parts were tough for him to grasp initially.
Exactly. So his endorsement really highlights that this book offers something substantial for people serious about this knowledge.
It's interesting, too, how the book touches on pressure point fighting developing in the West, like late 20th century. Sounds like there were some violence trying to reconcile the different medical views.
Yeah, and that's a core thing, isn't it? The difference in perspective. Western medicine is very structural. Anatomy, physiology, you can see it, measure it.
Right.
TCM looks at energy flow, connections that aren't always obvious physically, from a Western viewpoint anyway.
So early attempts to explain pressure points just using Western anatomy maybe missed something.
Often fell short, yeah. Later, you had people trying to learn TCM from the ground up, from an Eastern perspective, then apply it to martial arts, a different approach.
Which kind of leads us to these extraordinary vessels. The book calls them the human battery and says they haven't gotten as much attention as the main meridians.
Right, exactly. So think of the body's energy system in TCM. The extraordinary vessels are seen as the primary system. The main storage tanks, the battery pack, like the book says, they store energy and they release it to the 12 main meridians as needed. So the main meridians are like rivers, maybe, feeding specific areas.
And the extraordinary vessels are the big reservoirs feeding those rivers.
That's a great way to put it. They're the fundamental source. When they're working right, they keep energy moving, regulate the flow in the main meridians, keep everything balanced.
Vital for health, but also for martial arts, it seems.
Critical, especially at an advanced level.
The book mentions sealing the energy by attacking these vessels. That sounds pretty serious.
It potentially is. The idea is if you strike certain points on these vessels, you disrupt the body's basic ability to rebalance itself after other attacks.
So it makes other attacks worse.
Potentially much more severe, yes. It could prevent the body from correcting imbalances. And in some cases, the theory goes, it could even be lethal by messing with that core energy regulation. For you, thinking about this, an attack hitting these deep reserves could be really debilitating.
Okay. And which ones are the key players here, the core of this human battery?
The book names 3 specifically. The governing vessel, that's Dumai, the conception vessel, Renmai, and the thrusting vessel, Changmai. They're presented as the central parts of this primary energy system.
Got it. Now, how does this connect back to the Bubishi itself? The book says vital points are a huge focus.
Yeah, and this is where it gets interesting for practical application. The Bubishi's heavy focus on vital points strongly suggests TCM was the knowledge base, understanding the body's energy system for combat.
Even if we don't know exactly how much acupuncture knowledge the original authors had.
Right. The underlying TCM principles are clearly there in which points they chose and how they suggested using them.
The book even mentions striking points based on the biorhythmic cycle, hitting them when they're most active. That seems pretty deep into TCM.
It does suggest a solid working knowledge, yeah. Talking about hitting points at their peak energy times. That's definitely drawing on acupuncture or TCM principles. The book lists 36 specific combat points.
And McCarthy's translation mentions Dim Mak, blood gate attacks.
Right, targeting veins or arteries. So it shows this dual understanding attacking both energy and physical structures.
But it's not just about attacking, right? The
Yeah.
book brings up defense, too.
Absolutely essential. Martial arts and the Bubishi often focus on the offense, but the book makes a point. You have to train defense against these attacks, too.
So you need the whole picture.
Exactly. Know how to strike, know how to protect yourself. The book actually shows this.
How so?
It has photos showing, say, an offensive strike to a point, then right after, another set showing how you might defend against that same attack.
Ah, okay. But they're examples, not gospel.
Definitely examples. The book really stresses that you, the practitioner, need to interpret and adapt this based on your own style, your understanding of the point itself, the right angle, the right direction. It's not just paint by numbers.
Okay, let's switch gears slightly. The five-element theory, another big TCM concept, it seems like.
Huge. Wood, fire, earth, metal, water. It's foundational in TCM. It's how they categorized organs, but more importantly, how they saw them interacting.
Through cycles, right? Creation and control.
Exactly. One element nourishes another in the creation cycle, like wood feeds fire, and one regulates another in the control cycle, like water controls fire.
And this model is used for healing, like in acupuncture.
Widely used, yeah. But the book points out martial artists can use this understanding too, to maybe enhance their skills or even size up an opponent. For you, understanding these relationships might give clues about potential imbalances someone has.
And it even extends to body types, elemental body types.
Right. TCM observed people often show physical, even mental traits linked to these elements.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, so a wood type might be tall, slender. Fire type, maybe a reddish face, pointed features. Earth types tend to be stockier. Metal types, lean, muscular, maybe like a runner. Water types can be softer, sometimes a bit heavier. It's another lens to view predispositions.
Fascinating. But is it always just one element? Or are people usually a mix?
Oh, definitely often a mix. The book is clear on that. Someone might be mostly earth but have strong fire traits too. Or wood with metal influences. Recognizing these combos adds another layer for you, another way to potentially understand strengths or weaknesses.
Okay, let's loop back to the human battery, those extraordinary vessels. How do they actually connect to the rest of the energy network, the main meridians?
Good question. The book shows diagrams. The conception vessel, for instance, links up with several yin meridians, spleen, liver, kidney, but also some yang ones like stomach, large intestine, and the thrusting vessel connects to stomach, but significantly also to kidney, which TCM sees as super important for energy regulation. The governing vessel links to the bladder meridian, helping balance things, especially the water element. For you, this just highlights how those core energy reserves directly feed into specific organ functions.
It seems like the yang meridians get more connections overall, based on what you said.
That's a key observation the book makes, yeah. Most of the links between the extraordinary vessels and the main meridians are with yang meridians.
Why is that?
The thinking is yang organs, the bowels, are considered tougher, more resilient energetically than the yin organs. They can handle bigger swings in energy flow without getting thrown off as easily.
Makes sense. And then there are the linking vessels. How do they fit in?
They're like intermediaries. They shuttle energy back and forth between organs and meridians when needed.
Okay.
The yang linking vessel connects the human battery to all the yang meridians, so quick adjustments across that whole system are possible.
And the yin linking vessel.
That one connects to spleen, kidney, and liver. But interestingly, the book notes that heart and lungs, obviously vital, don't have direct links to these linking vessels.
Huh. Maybe they're protected somehow.
Yeah.
Or influenced differently.
It suggests maybe a more buffered or indirect relationship, yeah. For you, it shows this kind of tiered system for energy regulation and transfer.
Okay, this is all about the body's internal energy state. Now, the book brings in something from Western science. The body alarm reaction. Dr. Salih's stress response. How does that connect?
Yeah, this is a really cool connection the book makes. Salih described how the body reacts to stress in stages. Alarm, resistance, exhaustion. That first stage, the alarm reaction, is that immediate "oh no" response.
Fight or flight.
Exactly. Heart races, blood pressure spikes, muscles tense up, you get hyper alert. That adrenaline rush we've all felt.
And the book points out those physical reactions can actually mess with fine motor skills needed in some martial arts.
Precisely. Muscles getting super tight makes those really delicate hand movements or pinpoint strikes way harder, which is why the book suggests training should account for
It's
this.
like using bigger striking surfaces, maybe,
Yeah.
during that initial shock.
Yeah, maybe relying less on hitting a tiny target perfectly right at that moment. It might just be unrealistic for you then.
And even trained people aren't immune. It mentions unconditioned elements.
Right. You can train your response to certain things, but unexpected stuff, huge attacker, suddenly there are three guys, weird environment that can still kick off a major body alarm reaction, kind of overriding some training.
So how does TCM look at this? What's the Eastern angle on the BOR?
Well, the book draws this parallel.
Yeah.
Energetically, from a TCM view, BAR is linked with energy surging in the fire and metal meridians,
Okay.
and energy decreasing in wood, water, and earth meridians. It's like the body is shifting resources, prioritizing immediate defense systems.
Whoa. That's a really key insight for you, the listener. So it doesn't matter what someone's usual elemental type is. If they're in that stressed BOR state, their energy shifts predictably.
That's the theory put forward, yeah.
Hmm.
Any opponent in Bayar is likely deficient in earth, water, wood energy, and excessive in metal and fire energy.
Which could theoretically simplify targeting.
It could potentially give you a focus. Target those energetically weak areas regardless of their normal constitution in that moment.
We're definitely getting into serious applications now. The book talks about using pressure points lethally. That's heavy.
It is. And the book is very clear, extremely clear, that this kind of knowledge is only for literal life or death situations, period.
It mentions specific clusters, like GV1516 in the neckhead area
Uh-huh.
and CV2223 on the throat. Those sound incredibly dangerous.
They're considered extremely vulnerable areas. It also mentions strikes like GV26, the philtrum under the nose, and GV14 in the lower back.
Does it get into timing, like that diurnal cycle thing?
It mentions the diurnal cycle peak energy times for meridians, but the author seems skeptical about applying that reliably in a chaotic fight. Too unpredictable.
So instead of aiming for one tiny acupuncture point in a brawl,
The book suggests focusing on striking clusters of points, broader targets, more realistic under high stress for you.
yeah, that seems more practical.
And look, the book acknowledges the skepticism around pressure points in the West, sometimes because of bad teaching, sometimes misunderstanding,
Right.
but it emphasizes the principles are rooted in TCM, in Taoist logic. It's just a different way of looking at the body and combat dynamics.
Can we walk through a few specific point examples from the book just to get a feel for their described effects? Maybe start with the eyes.
Sure. Eyes aren't technically pressure points in the TCM sense, but obviously incredibly sensitive. The book highlights them for defense flicking, poking, because impairing vision is so effective, a primary target for you in self-defense.
Makes sense. What about ST12 near the collarbone?
ST12 is described as useful for disrupting balance, gaining position. A hit there can make the opponent's knees buckle, often used when you're defending and controlling an arm.
Okay. And GV26 under the nose.
That one's presented more as a finishing move. If the opponent is already bent over, a hard strike there is said to be very impactful.
GV14 lower back. Sounds risky to target.
It is. The book says it's accessible if someone's down, back exposed. Strikes there are described as potentially causing paralysis or serious injury. High risk, high consequence.
BL43 back near the shoulder blade. That one's more about structure.
Yeah, less about a direct KO, more about disrupting posture. A strike there can jerk that side forward, rotate them, maybe expose their center line for you, creates an opening.
CV4 lower abdomen.
Yeah.
Targeting the core.
Exactly. Attacking the energy center, the Dantian area.
Yeah.
Described as draining energy, making them fold forward, again, exposing other targets. Something for you to consider in terms of effects.
And LI10 outer forearm. Book says structural and elemental.
That's right. Easy to hit during an exchange. It can mess up their attacking arm, hurt their balance, but energetically, a hard strike is said to activate metal, secondarily fire. The imbalance and position change create openings for you.
It's really interesting how many of these points link back to those extraordinary vessels we discussed earlier.
Yeah, the book points that out. A good chunk of the 36 Bubishi points are right on or near intersections with the extraordinary vessels. Really highlights why understanding that deeper energy system is important if you're serious about this stuff.
Even the points not directly on them often have strong elemental links.
Exactly. They fit within that larger TCM framework.
Now, the book is extremely cautious about attacking the heart meridian. Why specifically?
Okay, so the heart meridian, according to the book's explanation, doesn't connect directly to the extraordinary vessels. This might make it more vulnerable to energy shifts. And during that body alarm reaction, remember, fire energy surges. The heart meridian can get rapidly over-energized. So a misdirected energetic attack then could potentially disrupt its rhythm badly, arrhythmia. The book calls it potentially the most severe energetic attack.
And again, stresses this is absolutely life or death knowledge only.
Unequivocally, extreme caution is paramount.
What about the yin-linking vessels, mentioned as secondary targets?
Right, so heart and lungs are sort of indirectly protected, but liver, kidneys, spleen are connected via the yin-linking vessel intersection points, mainly on the conception vessel like CV22, CV23.
So those organs are vulnerable there.
Potentially, yes. At points like LV14, SP13, 15, 16, KI9, but these organs do have better connections back to the extraordinary vessels than, say, the fire metal meridians.
Ah, so they have more of an energetic buffer, making them secondary targets.
That's the idea presented. They're less immediately critical or perhaps less susceptible than other potential targets in that high-stress bar state.
Wow, okay. This has been, well, a true deep dive.
Yeah.
Complex, fascinating. What are the big picture takeaways for our listeners, do you think?
I think, firstly, it really shows this amazing interplay. You've got these ancient Eastern energy concepts, and you can see parallels, or at least connections, to modern Western understanding of stress physiology. It gives you a more maybe holistic view of how we function under pressure.
Yeah, seeing how the body's predictable stress reactions can be viewed through that TCM lens is quite something.
It is, and it potentially offers insights into energetic vulnerabilities that arise during conflict.
And practically speaking, this knowledge touches on both defense understanding vulnerabilities and offense, though with extreme caveats.
Absolutely. Understanding these potential weak points, energetically and physically, and how stress impacts them can definitely inform self-defense strategies and your understanding of your own body's reactions. But again, the lethal potential demands incredible responsibility.
So wrapping this up, maybe a final thought for you, our listener. We've talked a lot about how interconnected the body's systems are, physical, energetic, stress response. Considering all that, how might this broader view maybe shift your own perspective on health, wellness, maybe even just how you see people interacting when things get tense?
Yeah, perhaps it sparked some curiosity to maybe look a little deeper into traditional Chinese medicine, its logic, its applications. There's a whole world there.
Definitely food for thought. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.